Here we go. Week 12 in the ELF. Let's dive into the playoff race a little bit, all right? Let's go.
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Base Coverage presented to you by Knoah Teamwear. I'm your host, Jamal Clay, and we made it to week 12 in the ELF. There's going to be some great matchups this week. Two that we're really going to need to focus on as playoff implications are on the line. We'll dive into some picks and break down some games that some other matchups that are going on this week. But before we do all that, I want to talk a little bit about this playoff race here as currently constituted. So as you can see on the screen here, because of what happened last week with the Vienna Vikings, the Hamburg Sea Devils now hold the #1 seed in the playoffs, which makes things interesting for the fact that this is a team that is really not getting the respect you would think a #1 team would get, but they just find ways to keep on winning and go about their business. So as if the playoffs started today, we will have the Sea Devils versus the Raiders, and we will have the Vienna Vikings, who are now in the 2 seed, versus the Barcelona Dragons. And the first couple of teams that are out would be the Berlin Thunder, the Rhein Fire, and the Frankfurt Galaxy. Now, although those teams are out, as we look at this screen here, there are a lot of close races that we need to be paying attention to. 2 games this week that we'll dive into with our segment: the Thunder versus the Sea Devils, which I think is going to be a bloodbath of a game, a very physical game, which both teams, I'm sure, can't wait to get into. And the next one that I'm looking at is the Rhein Fire versus the Frankfurt Galaxy, which is a old school rivalry from the NFL Europe days. So again, a lot of playoff implications on the line. Teams could possibly be eliminated this week, and teams will definitely have their playoff hopes still on live. So it's gonna be a fun race to dive into. But hey, let's get into the games and what we got coming up and dive into the breakdown of it right after this quick word from our partners over at Knoah Teamwear. First game we got tomorrow. We have Stuttgart Surge traveling to Barcelona. This is gonna be Barcelona heavy winner here. I think Stuttgart, is kind of set in. They're still looking for a first win. I don't know if they get it. They definitely don't get it this week versus the Dragons. One thing to keep an eye on the Dragons, even though they are playing well, they're a team I feel like plays up or down to their competition, and right now they're in a position where they can't afford that. So they need to solidify this win, not mess around and take care of Stuttgart. I'm taking the. I think the Dragons are gonna take this game. Next one we have, I'm going to skip around a little bit because I'm going to wait to get to the final 2 games. But we have the Cologne Centurions traveling to Innsbruck to play the Swarco Raiders. So Raiders are another team that has just been going about their business and winning games. And it's ironic that 2 teams that are kind of looked at the same way within the league kind of have just been winning, silently. Raiders, one of the best teams in the ELF at home, currently now at 4-1. I don't see them slipping to a Centurions team that's been slipping, that's been on a slippery slope for a while now. I think it's set in for Cologne in terms of the season and how things are going. I'm going to pick the Raiders to win this game. We have the Rams travel to Vienna to play the Vikings. Hey, coming off such an embarrassing loss like they did last week, and it's one thing to lose, but it's another thing for the Vikings to lose the way they did versus a conference opponent like the Galaxy, who are fighting for their playoff hopes and possibly a playoff team, depending on how things go. So I think they bounce back versus the Rams. I think we've seen the best of the Rams. I would be pleasantly shocked if the Rams find a way to beat the Vikings at home in Vienna, especially coming off that win. I'm going to take the Vikings to take care of business at home and reestablish their self of who they are in the league. Here we go. Russell Panthers versus the Leipzig Kings. This matchup, if you would have asked me preseason, one game that's going to have playoff implications later on in the season, it would have been this one, the Panthers versus Leipzig, especially how these two teams paired off last season with fighting against the playoffs. Both teams are just, had an up and down season, very disappointing season. Both the teams had high expectations, at least in the meta world of the social media that covers the ELF. I know I had high expectations for these teams. I think with Leipzig losing their quarterback Connor Miller, I personally don't know what they're getting from Gabriel Cunningham. I know their defense is still going to play hard, but I'm going to take the Panthers to go to Leipzig and catch the victory. Next, we have one of the games that I'm probably going to be watching this week. Hamburg Sea Devils travel to Berlin to play the Thunder. Berlin just been on a steady climb, and this is not the team we saw week one against the Sea Devils. It's going to be a completely different team. The defense is playing better. The offense is playing better. The team is gelling all together. And I think it took a while for the chemistry to settle in, but ultimately it's coming around. And then on the other hand, we have a Sea Devils team that just keeps winning. You just keep counting them out. They keep winning. Their defense is dominant. And they showed what they could do and took care of business last year versus the Leipzig Kings. And it's going to be interesting to see how they attack this matchup going into this game. Now, for me, there's no, all the pressure is on the Hamburg offense in this game. I believe their defense is going to show up. I know, the Berlin defense is going to show up. And, if you were to ask me, I think at this point in the game, I think Joe Germanaro has been playing better than, Cisse at the quarterback position. But for me, I think the Sea Devils go into this and take this victory versus Berlin. I think they reestablish who they are, not only, in the ELF or in the conference. And I think, they embrace that number one seed, and they're out to prove everyone that, listen, we're the team to beat. And that defense is going to show up again. Believe it or not, I think Cisse's been playing good enough and better enough that, he could win a game offensively. So I'm going to rock with the Sea Devils to win this game versus Berlin. Last but not least, we have the Frankfurt Galaxy traveling to Dusseldorf to play the Rhine Fire. Hey, kudos to all the fans out there in Dusseldorf. As of right now, 10,000 tickets have been sold for this game. This is definitely going to be the game of the week, the must-watch game of the week. This team, it was a nail-biter week one. It's an old NFL Europe rivalry. There's so much riding on line for both of these teams in playoff contentions. For me personally, I'm gonna rock with the Rhine Fire. I think they find a way to go after that Frankfurt Galaxy team, that defense. I think Jadrian Clark brings someone who has had time to develop chemistry with those guys over there in a couple of weeks. And I think he's going to prove that last week wasn't a fluke versus the Rams. A 7-touchdown performance. Yeah, you expect to get a team like that, but I think, as we have a rematch of last year's ELF championship game between these two quarterbacks, I think Jadrian has been circling this game for a while. I'm going to rock with the Rhine Fire to beat the Frankfurt Galaxy this week. Here we go, celebrity guest picker, media picker this week. We have Adam from That American Football Show. Earlier week one, we had Joe, his co-host from that show, and now Adam's going to come over here and bring his picks. As you can see, the teams that he picked on the screen and the teams that were lockstep in and which ones we're going head to head with. So good luck this week, my friend. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, follow Athletes Forum and Knoah Teamwear on Instagram. And if we win or tie, always the tie goes to the fans, as we will give out some free gear voluntarily. So thank you guys for tuning in, and let's enjoy week 12 and as we get closer and closer to the playoffs.